Today, I'm joined by a true heavyweight in American media. Sean Hannity is a #1 New York Times bestselling author, a nationally syndicated radio host, and the longest-running primetime cable news anchor in history. I'm also proud to say a personal friend. And we're going to be diving into the chaos and hopefully gaining some clarity behind the reorganization of the State Department, the escalating trade war with China, the firestorm surrounding due process rights under Trump's revived Alien Enemies Act, and that is just the beginning. So let's get into it.
Keeping it real with Jillian Michaels.
Keeping it real.
Mr. Hannity, the man, the myth, the legend, the most asked for guest of the freaking podcast. How are you? What's going on? Have you quit vaping?
It's great to be here.
I wanted to start out the show waxing poetic about you. And I often say that of all the people I have had the absolute pleasure and privilege of meeting, there has never been a person who is as magnanimous and gracious and lovely and intelligent.
We meet and then you send me, thousands of dollars worth
Oh my God, stop, Sean. This is ridiculous. It was the smallest thing I could do.
I want people to know, because I think people saw you on Biggest Loser. And well, I will say this, and I know from personal experience, you might want to think about lying to Jillian if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. I will say that part. But however, she's so passionate about what she does and she so believes in what she says. She's like, no, you're eating the wrong stuff. I will send it to you. And we've become great friends since. And I'm honored to be on with you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure having gotten to know you, and your family's been amazing for me too. So
well, I'm exceptionally grateful that you would come on. And I want to disclose this to everybody watching. There are times where you're talking to me at 11 p.m. at night and essentially talking me off a ledge. And I'm like, Sean, we're invading Greenland. You're like, we're not going to invade Greenland. So I have more questions. There's so much going on in the world. And I'll be honest, it is a bit scary and confusing. And I want to start with one that I'm hearing a lot about from my friends on the left, because I feel that they need a rational, reasonable explanation if there is one. And I'm struggling for it personally right now. You said I could ask you anything. So the immigration piece, I want to throw out there right now. Obviously, we know that hundreds of thousands of people poured over the border every single month over the Biden administration. If only 1% of them were criminals, that would be unacceptable, that it overwhelms the infrastructure, that it hurts American workers. You're giving food stamps, phone cards, interest-free loans in California, healthcare in California, when my 35-year-old brother can't afford healthcare, but his tax dollars are going to pay for an illegal person's healthcare. You can understand why the mandate was enough is enough. However, you're seeing the outrage, and it's hard to defend over the due process piece. So let's start with that, and I could give you the scale of the guys.
Can I answer that with a question?
Please.
Okay. You don't respect our laws and our borders and our sovereignty, and Joe Biden allowed this all to happen. And by the way, I will argue and I will make the strongest case, if you'll allow me, that he and Kamala and Mayorkas all have blood on their hands. And Laken Riley, Rachel Morin, Kayla Hamilton, Jocelyn Nungary. I used to scroll during the campaign, the list of Americans, victims of violent crime, because they allowed somewhere between 10 and 15 unvetted illegal immigrants from around the world. Now, among that group, Jillian, we know known terrorists are in this country because they allowed it to happen. Donald Trump has pretty much effectively shut down the border.
Yes.
It's a 97% reduction as we tape this podcast. I may be live, I don't even know. All right, it's 97% reduction.
It's taped.
We have known terrorists, cartel members, gang members, and the left constantly talks about due process. Well, if you talk about, Agreo Garcia, for example, Okay. Everyone, he's a Marylander. He's a Marylander.
He's a dad.
He's an El Salvadorian. He entered our country illegally. We just learned this very day that just a couple of years ago, that he was stopped by a police officer in Pennsylvania, and he had people in the back of his car, and he said he was driving a friend's car. Turns out the guy was a human, an admitted human.
Right.
Here's a guy whose wife, who's now apparently advocating for his return to America, who wrote a handwritten complaint to the police department that he beat the hell out of her, was a wife beater. This is a guy that not one, but two separate judges said was a MS-13 gang member, not Sean Hannity. That is due process to me. Now, the idea that you enter the country illegally and now all of a sudden we're going to accept the fact that you deserve due process. He admits he's in the country illegally. That alone means goodbye. And don't quote me, quote Hillary Clinton back in 2008. Send you home. And the Democratic Party is now evolved. Look, this is a party, and you really were in the forefront of this discussion.
I know the argument. I'm going to hit you with all the arguments because I've been contending with them now for days. They're going to tell you the Constitution says persons, not citizens. It's like that by design. And therefore, irregardless of whether he crossed the border illegally, according to our Constitution, he gets due process. Sean, here, ready? Let's keep going. I then say, okay, hold on. The guy's a scumbag. He's suspected of trafficking. I know all of his stuff. They got the tattoos, et cetera, et cetera. He then says, I don't want to go home because other gangs will kill me. Therefore, I need asylum. Mind you, people on the left are like, he's a dad. He's a Maryland man. But it's like, well, if he's not in a gang.
If I hear Maryland man one more time.
I'm with you, boss. I'm here with you.
You know who was a Marylander? Rachel Morin was a Marylander. Kayla Hamilton was a Marylander. Rachel was a mother of 5. She was and by the way, Chris Van Hollen never called the family of the real Marylander and offered his condolences and sympathy. Never did he call another real Marylander by the name of Kayla Hamilton, and brutally, in both cases, by illegals from El Salvador. Now, let me address. I don't know how deep in the weeds you want me to go here.
I want you to go there because I'm having these conversations, and to a certain point, and I'll get to it with one individual, I start to lose my perspective on it and shift sides a little bit, like with the gay makeup artist who wasn't a criminal and applied for asylum upon entering and was doing everything the right way, and then we sent him to a prison. And so the Kilmar, I'm there. I'm like, okay, hold on, guys. We could have deported him to a separate third-party country. He had a deportation order. Shut up, you're insane, and I can make all these arguments. But when we get to the gay guy, the gay Venezuelan makeup artist who has no criminal record, Sean, and this is the part where I just think why, Trump? Why do this one? I don't understand.
First of all, I am not familiar with the case. So I can't comment on that one intelligently. Yeah. So I want to, but I will look into it and I'll examine it. I will start with this though, and that is every country. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. And we now have Iranian squads. We know for a fact in our country, we have known terrorists, known cartel members, known gang members, known. Donald Trump now has the task impossible of finding and deporting all of these people. And what frustrates me is Democrats, not only do they champion the right of men to play women's sports, they put the rights of those illegals over the safety of Americans. To me, American safety ought to come first. And if you didn't respect our laws, border, and sovereignty, you're a criminal by nature. Now, let me go back to Garcia for just a minute, because I think this is an important distinction.
Okay.
And this is the weeds part that I don't want to bore your audience.
You're not boring anyone. Please talk to them like you talk to me at 11 p.m. at night when I have these
Alien Enemy Act was used by 4 presidents. It was passed in the late 1700s. Okay. The last time before President Trump used it was, I believe, Harry Truman, and it got challenged in court. The U.S. Supreme Court, historic precedent-setting case, weighed in, and once the president, first of all, they viewed it as constitutional, well within the president's executive authority as commander-in-chief. If we have now designated, he has designated MS-13 and Tren de Aragua as designated terrorist organizations. That means that the Alien Enemies Act is applicable. That means when you have 2 judges in this case, in the Garcia case, that say, okay, they had determined on their own. I don't know if he's Chris Van Hollen didn't even ask him. He should have. Are you a wife beater? He didn't ask him that either. Because I would like answers to those
questions. The Dems have lost their mind.
I'd like to know why you didn't call Rachel Morin's family.
That's your poster child. The reason I also bring that up is because you had another option. You could have found this kid, this makeup artist kid. And I know you're not familiar with this one. And to be honest, Sean, you can't find out what happened to the kid. I tried to figure it out online. It's like, we don't know. There's no update on his status. But the fact that the Democrats literally sanctify criminals is the reason they lost the election.
Good. Let them keep it up, because they're going to lose every other election. And as somebody that believes in conservatism, I don't want them in charge. I think what Joe Biden did was the greatest preventable national security disaster in our history. I'm going to take it a step further, and I've said this publicly. All these people victims of violent crime by their unvetted illegals. That's why I say they have blood on their hands.
Yeah.
And here's my prediction. And I pray to God, and I believe strongly in God, that I am wrong. And I do believe that that it's not a matter of if, it's when. This country is going to be attacked from within because of their open border policies. They have allowed too many people in here. And so now Donald Trump inherits, again, task impossible, find and deport cartel members, gang members, and known terrorists that are here. So, people want to talk about individual cases, but this is the difficulty of your former party, is they have now evolved into the party in the U.S. Senate. They had a chance to stand up for women's rights. Democratic senators chose not to, and they want to champion the right of men to play women's sports.
And they keep digging.
Was an athlete. Sorry. Okay, but this drives you crazy. Drives me crazy too.
I just can't understand. They lost the election, and I don't know what it is. I continue to ask myself why I'm disappointed in the response. By the way, there are things like I'm talking to you about Trump. I wish he would get this Venezuelan makeup artist kid back to the States and say, okay, oops on this guy. Let's keep going forward. But with the left, you want to talk about... Can I
ask you a question? Yeah. What would be so bad if every illegal goes back home, and if you self-deport, you can come back legally?
Nothing.
If you don't self-deport, you never get to come back.
Love that. No problems with that.
Trump is supporting that.
Love legal immigration. Huge fan. Yeah. Here's the problem. The problem is that when you take a kid, and this is, again, I hate to do this because you don't know the case. There's another guy, this guy who, Stephanie Gallagher, a Trump-appointed judge, just ordered the Trump administration to bring back a 20-year-old who came in as an underage minor, and there was a a settlement with Department of Homeland Security that it would refrain from deporting any of the individuals in this little group. The kid was arrested for cocaine, but she says he broke the contract. It's a breach of contract to the Trump administration because they agreed they wouldn't deport this kid. So they're going to go back to the argument of, if you don't provide due process and you're breaking the law here with your own judges, what's next, right? It's a slippery slope. Don't become a monster when you're dealing with monsters. Then you've got this kid who wasn't a criminal and is from Venezuela, but we sent him to a prison in El Salvador. And this is where I want to say, Sean, get him back. And then we can say that we're right here.
You want to bring Garcia back?
No, oh God, no. The gay Venezuelan,
The
gay makeup artist who's not a criminal, that did apply for asylum and did it the right way and is now in an El Salvadorian prison. And I feel like if you're going to be the party of common sense and be the good guys, then you gotta. I see the pushback. I see the struggle. I saw Trump's post saying, "Let me do my job," and I felt that so strongly, his frustration, but.
Here's the problem, and I totally know where you're coming from. I know you have a great heart, and you're looking at somebody. Hey, but wait a minute. Yeah, this is not the Tren de Aragua MS-13 guy. This is not the guy Khalil that another cause.
I hate that guy.
Okay,
I can't. We can get into Mahmoud Khalil, who celebrates
Hamas. Yeah, I mean, okay.
I'm with you 100%. Bye-bye, Mahmoud Khalil. Yeah, you can go celebrate October 7th. By the way, Sean, can we throw this out there real quick? Just in case, because there are so many people who are like, that was a fake social media post. This is a guy who's a spokesperson for the Columbia University Apartheid Divest Group that on their Substack celebrated October 7th and Yahya Sinwar. He is celebrating terrorism. This is not what we give people green cards for celebrating the of Jews. Get out of here. I am with you completely. This is where it's like there's a continuum, and I can make all of these fights, but it's very difficult when a friggin' Trump appointee judge is like, okay, Trump, you got to bring him back. And he's like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Then they get to say, look, he's authoritarian. That's what he's giving them a talking piece. When your metabolism is working properly, you're going to feel the benefits in literally every aspect of your life. And I have found an invaluable tool that gives me the insights to create a healthy metabolism for my body. And it's called Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and then on their app, it lets you know, are you burning fat, are you burning carbs, and it gives you tailored guidance to improve your health, your workouts, your sleep, stress management. All you gotta do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you're gonna know exactly what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fat or carbs, and then, as mentioned, you're gonna get a personalized plan to help you based on your measurements from the day. You can also breathe into it before and after your workouts, before and after your meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. It's been an invaluable tool for me personally with regard to my own health, my own metabolism, and maximizing and optimizing my routine. Whenever I've had the opportunity to work hands-on with people, I utilize this as a tool to guide them, and you can do it on your own at home with your own Lumen. The warmer months are coming, guys, so spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/Jillian to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Jillian for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Did you know that the skin on your neck is thinner, more delicate, and less oily than facial skin? Which basically means that it requires specialized care. GoPure's proprietary firming complex is designed to visibly firm and smooth the skin on your neck and chest, thank you so much, in as little as 4 to 8 weeks. And in a consumer study, 100% of the users said that their skin looked more supple, and 97% noticed a firmer appearance. It's dermatologist recommended, it's cruelty-free, paraben-free, and sulfate-free, with over 1 million jars sold. This beauty secret is no longer a secret, and personally, it's been a game changer for me. I use it morning and night religiously. It's my go-to. Tighten, lift, and restore elasticity in your neck, because your skincare routine should not stop at your jawline. So for a limited time, our listeners get 25% off GoPure with the code Jillian25 at checkout. So just head to gopurebeauty.com and use the code Jillian25 and you're all set. And after you buy, do us a favor. When they ask what you heard about GoPure, tell them it was from my show.
Well, frankly, there was interpretation in terms of the first Supreme Court edict. He is abiding by the second one. I do believe the court has been ducking their responsibility. every Supreme Court justice or wannabe justice, or if you're being vetted by the Senate, they'll always ask the question, do you believe in Supreme Court precedents? And they'll all say yes. This should have been, we already have the precedents on the Alien Enemies Act. We already have it. What's so fascinating about that case is that not only did they say that the president has the constitutional authority under his executive powers, but it also said once the president makes that decision, there is no further judicial review, meaning it doesn't get to go to the courts. It actually was in the ruling. But look, let me put that aside. I have been down to the border at least 15 times, all the way from the Rio Grande, all the way through Texas and Arizona, all the way to San Diego. I've been on horseback with agents. I've been on all-terrain vehicles. I've been on foot. I've been on helicopters. I've been on boats. You name it, I've done it all. I've been in an office building in your former state of California where they had built a sophisticated tunnel from Mexico up into the floor of an office building in San Diego. Now, let me say something that may surprise you. Now, I'll never forget, on one side, there was a huge fence, and it was in San Diego, which, by the way, is the Del Coronado not the greatest hotel in the history of mankind? That's like the Breakers in Palm Beach. I mean, only two great places. I agree. I divert your attention here. All right, I digress. So I have seen all of this. Now, I'm on that border. I see a fence. On one side of the fence, you see young children. And I happen to have a heart for kids. You have a heart for kids. I know that. And they're playing in what we would describe accurately in this country as a dump, as a junkyard. I mean, a hole with tires and crap and old refrigerators and metal and garbage. That's right across. I'm standing right there. I have the video of it. On the other side, at the time, it was like 2013, 14, I don't remember what year. On the other side, you got $1 million homes. Now, if I'm the person on the side of poverty where I'm raising my kids and then I'm looking over there saying, boy, that looks like the land of milk and honey. I think I want to be over there. And all I got to do is cross over that border into that country, and maybe I'll be able to have that dream come true for me. If you don't think I sympathize with that, no. I do.
Me too.
And I don't blame them. It's America's job to secure its borders. But now we've got such a mess. I know people want to focus on one case or another case, but if we don't find these people, get rid of these people, Americans are going to die. I go back to, it's not if, it is when we are going to be attacked, and there is already so much blood on people's hands. And what I don't understand in this entire argument, the Chris Van Hollens of the world, or the 4 congressmen that went down and their performative art.
It's exactly what it is. You know that. Yeah.
We have researched, we have not found one instance where they ever called the family of any American by one of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's unvetted illegals, or the family of somebody, or the family of a victim of crime. And to me, it's like, okay, if that's the party you want to be, you want to champion the rights of illegals over the safety of Americans, and you want us to have compassion for a guy that was designated by 2 separate judges as a MS-13 gang member, whose own wife in her own handwriting says he's a wife beater, over Rachel Morin, Kayla Hamilton, Jocelyn Nungary, and Laken Riley. Go right ahead. But I'm going to tell you something. This is an 80-20 issue. And there might be individual cases, and I'll concede your point that you're probably right about this makeup person. You're probably right. However, when we're dealing with 14 million, how do we have time to go through all of that logistically? It's impossible. What I would say to people that want to be here, that were on the other side of the fence, and my heart breaks for them. My grandparents came here at the turn of the last century. They were broke. They had nothing. Both my parents grew up very, very poor. My mom in the South Bronx, my dad in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. My dad lost his mother from complications giving birth to him. He was shuffled around family to family. His dad worked full time. They had nothing growing up. But I know I stand on their shoulders. Then my parents, okay, it was a big deal that I grew up in Long Island, New York, on a 50 by 100 lot with, three older sisters and one bathroom. That's called hell on earth because they liked makeup, and makeup takes forever. And when you're there, like, I gotta go to the bathroom. That's not the best place. But you know what? It was better than where they grew up. And my mom was a prison guard. My dad was a waiter on weekends, family court probation officer during the week. So, you know, that's the story of immigrants. I don't care where people come from. I don't. Come in legally. Go through the process. Now, we need to vet you. We need to know you don't have radical associations.
Yes.
After a post-COVID world, I want a health check.
Yep.
And I want to know you're not going to be a financial burden on the American people, because we already have $37 trillion in debt, and we can't afford to take care of you. That means you provide for your own health care. You show you have the means of taking care of yourself. Then welcome to America. You're part of our family. And I mean that. I don't care where you come from.
How do you get there, though? Because we've talked about this kind of reform. Like, okay, how do you get more judges to the border to adjudicate more cases? How does that happen? And then I would also say, shifting over to why. Well, let's start with that. How does that happen, Sean? Is the plan stop the flow, which he's done, get the people that don't belong here out of here and living off the dole, so to speak? People who can barely make ends meet for themselves, having to utilize their tax dollars to make ends meet for people that can't pay into the system because they're not legally here. Okay. Does Trump have a plan for that? I think that for some reason, nobody's even touching upon the issue of legal immigration. So it just becomes, he's a monster. He's Hitler, which we've heard so many times. He's authoritarian, and he doesn't even care about people. He has no empathy for these people. Does he have a plan to say, all right, it's a 1, 2, 3 process?
Well, first of all, you keep saying that your liberal friends.
Yeah.
They keep bringing up the words due process. I have something you can throw at them. Did Lake and Riley have due process?
I saw that.
Did Rachel Martin have due process? Jocelyn Nungary was a 12-year-old girl. I've interviewed her mother. I've interviewed her grandfather. I can tell you, having spoken to Patty Moore and Rachel's mom, Lake and Riley's family, I never interviewed them. I just called to offer condolences. And I was aware that they liked my show. And I said, I'm not calling for an interview. I'm calling to offer my condolences. And Alexis Nungary, Jocelyn, that little girl, I believe 12 years old, was brutally. She bit them. She scratched them. She fought back with all the might of a little girl.
Yeah.
Was and thrown in the river. Now, I'm sorry, she didn't have due process, and her life was ripped away, and her parents and her mother and grandfather will never be the same again. Patty Moore will never be the same again. Lake and Riley's families, they'll never be the same. This is why you want to talk about due process. Tell me why they don't care about these families.
I was going to ask you that.
Why didn't Joe ever call these families? Why didn't Kamala ever call? Why did they lie to us for 4 straight years?
I know.
The borders closed, the borders secure. I play a montage. I could play it for 20 minutes of them lying to us. We all knew it was wide open. Now they opened the door for Donald Trump to win. Now it's an 80-20 issue. The country, I know that we want to sometimes focus on one case.
I get
and
it.
there are legitimate claims.
It.
I would say this: if you want a middle ground solution, I would say, and they're offering this, or they were discussing it in the past week, offering this, an open window, give people an opportunity to self-deport. If you self-deport, then you will have a chance to immediately apply to come into our country legally. That saves us a lot of money having to try and track you down and find you. And it shows that you're willing to abide by the laws of this land. Isn't it a prerequisite, or shouldn't it be a prerequisite, that if you want to be in America, that you got to follow American law?
Yes, of course. Of course.
Foundational.
Of course.
So I can see both sides, but I will tell you, every other government on the face of the earth has borders and laws. Give you an example. Australia. All right. If you try to get into Australia, you are going to be met on the high seas, and they're going to be very nice to you. They will give you food, water, medicine if you need it. If you need medical care, they will take you to another island and provide it free of charge for you. Then you're getting your ass back in that boat and you go back to where you came from, and you're never going to set foot on Australian soil. It's just not going to happen. Does that make them bigoted, racist, xenophobic? No, it makes them a nation of laws.
Speaking of why the Democrats don't have sympathy.
Well, you want to talk about health, wellness, fitness, nutrition?
No, I want you to
make
explain.
Fun of me because I am not perfect.
You are pretty close to perfect. I happen to just think you've hung the moon. And that's why your opinion matters so much to me. And that's why I want to share your voice. If I could get people on the left to listen, although now it's like, oh, she's MAGA. Like, okay, sure, I'm MAGA. Whatever you guys want to call me. Because I don't think they see the other side. There's a selective outrage that I continue to try to point out. And it's like, I'm outraged about this. And it's like, well, why weren't you outraged when they were flooding in? And why weren't you outraged about why that was allowed? Oh, I'm outraged about Bobby Kennedy. He's not a doctor. I'm like, why weren't you outraged when the former guy who ran HHS was also not a doctor and tried to remove any and every age limit for kids to get gender affirming care? The medicalization of, sterilizing them. And, it's insane. Where was your outrage? Because I think for you and I, we can concede points for sure. And we then play a game of lesser evils. And I've had this conversation quite a bit, right? Well, okay, we can't get everything right. Which one do you want to pick? I guess for me, I'm feeling like I feel like there is so much pushback on Trump and so much like he's Hitler and the hands-off protests all over the country, and the left is just flooding the zone, Sean. It is crazy.
It's getting loud.
Yes.
But you've experienced this in your life. When I heard your comments where you really, I've known about you forever, but I've always known you in your professional capacity and how great you are in that area. Now that I know you personally, and we have these discussions, but where you really broke through and probably lost a lot of friendships in your life as well, but you also gained friendships, was when you were on with Sage Steele. And I can't even say it as good as you. I don't have it, perfect in my memory, but that was the moment. I check every box in your. Do you remember exactly what you said?
Yes, in your game of woke victimology poker. I got a black kid. I got a brown kid. I'm a Jew. I'm an Arab.
I wish I said it. That's so good. It's brilliant.
And still, it's like when I leave California, and that's the thing. I had thought when the left lost this election, and I go back to, I don't know why I care, but I had hoped they would think, wow, we've gone too far. But instead, I see them leaning in. Like, you've got AOC being touted as the potential front runner for the Democrats. Does it get more extreme than AOC? I have no idea if she is a good person or a bad person. All I know is I find her to be divisive. I find her to race bait constantly. Unless I'm wrong, and I'm open to being corrected here.
Look, if she's going to be, Jasmine Crockett and Bernie Sanders and the squad are the face of the Democratic Party, I can make the argument to you that they're never going to win another election again. Now, Republicans also have to deliver, and the Trump agenda, he's doing the biggest things. He's trying to tackle the biggest issues, which if he's successful, and I believe he will be, I'm not a conservative just to put a name on me. I'm a conservative because I believe conservatism works. And I can give you the chapter and verse on why I believe it works. Everyone says cutting taxes, you're helping the rich. You're not helping no. Reagan cut taxes, doubled revenues to the federal government in 8 years, created the longest period of peacetime economic growth. 21 million new jobs were created in that period. Cutting taxes results in more revenue, not less revenue. So, that is a liberal fallacy. Also, the left also believes, and people need to ask themselves, why do they want the Green New Deal, which is represented by AOC? It's guaranteed daycare, guaranteed healthy food, guaranteed healthcare, guaranteed college, guaranteed, I guess, a box that they can put you in when you're dead, cradle to grave, womb to the tomb, government this. Okay, I have questions for those people. Tell me why you have so much faith in government. What does government do so well? They said they put Social Security in a lockbox. Oh, sorry, they opened the lockbox, they put it in the general fund, and they squandered your money, and it's now headed towards insolvency along with Medicaid. How is law and order and safety and security working in the country?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we have and dismantle no bail laws. I would argue that they're failing there. We spend more per capita on education than any other industrialized country in the entire world with the worst results. How's that part of government working out? How's that promise of Obamacare working out? Keep your doctor, keep your plan, and the average family saves $2,500 a year. Well, millions lost their doctors, millions lost their plans, and we're now paying about 300% more on average. And about 45% of the country have one Obamacare exchange option. Why do I say this? Because they want more government. They want cradle, grave, womb, tomb. I don't. I believe in a meritocracy. I believe in freedom. I believe in America first. And then we from a position of strength can help the world as we deem it the right thing to do. And I just think that the Democratic Party, there's been no introspection.
No.
I always am looking at myself. I'm always trying to say, all right, what can I do better in my life, on my shows? There's been no course correction whatsoever. It was interesting to watch this battle emerge between the vice chair of the DNC, David Hogg, this week, and the chair of the DNC, because Hogg is like, no, I'm raising tens of millions of dollars. And if you're not radical enough, in other words, then we're going to primary you.
Right.
This is elected Democrats. And then finally, the chair of the DNC said, no, that's not going to be our policy. And you can't be the vice chair of the DNC if you're not going to support elected representatives in our party. You see the conflict. Right now, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are scared to death. Chuck Schumer this week shows up in a poll in New York, the lowest number he has had since the history of Siena polling in New York. And guess who's on the rise? AOC. And if she primaries him, as of today, I bet she wins over him. They got furious that he did something that he has been consistent on his entire career. And by the way, I can't stand him. He is a jackass. He is a mean guy. How far am I allowed to go here?
You're all the way down. Is this when he didn't shut down the government because he was?
Yes, because he wouldn't shut down. But he said that. But I have a montage of him saying it all throughout his career.
Right.
So he was consistent. Then the left turned on him. And do you think Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer are going to stand up to Jasmine Crockett, AOC, the Squad, and Bernie Sanders? I don't think so. And this is now what has dramatically shifted. The party's been radicalized. We were talking about it. Champion right of men to play women's sports, put the rights of illegals over the safety of Americans. And it gets worse than that. Claim that we're having a constitutional crisis if we discover, right as of today, $150 billion spent abroad, not even in this country, on wokeism, DEI-ism, transgenderism, LGBTQ-ism, Green New Deal-ism. Guess what? We have 37 trillion in debt. We're robbing from our kids and grandkids. Stop wasting our money, because you know who's paying for that? Nurses are paying for that. Electricians and plumbers and contractors are paying for that. The people that get up, work hard every day, they deserve better stewardship of their money. And this is now, and that is the party. Now, it's also a party. I got a kick out of it, and I talk about it all the time because it's like my favorite moment for the Democrats. And it shows no introspection, as I said, and no course correction.
None.
So Trump has the speech before the joint session, right? Okay. They wouldn't stand for mothers that lost their children. They wouldn't stand for mothers that lost their children. Okay, you don't want to stand for Trump. I can deal with that. I still think you should stand for the first lady of our country. I once went to an Obama State of the Union. I sat in the gallery upstairs. He came in. I stood up, and he's our president. Didn't like him, didn't like his policies, but I stood up out of respect for the office. But then they didn't stand up for a 12-year-old young man that had survived cancer. You can't stand up for that kid? What a cool story that was. That was a tearjerker. Then they can't stand up for the wife of a slain officer hero whose husband gave everything for his community and country. Then they couldn't stand for a young man who lost his father and that night got a commission to West Point because he had done so well in school with like a 4.5 GPA. They couldn't stand for him either. And they hold up their bingo cards. Now, that wasn't just one Democrat. That was every one of them.
I know.
They've all been radicalized. And the leadership, if they're not radicalized, they don't have the moral courage to stand up for them. I'll give you another example. Where are the Democrats standing up against these Hamas sympathizers in the halls of Congress and condemning them, or on college campuses? Where are they standing up against domestic terrorism and bullets being into Tesla dealerships, or assassination threats to Elon or Trump, or charging stations set ablaze, or Tesla set ablaze, or doxing Tesla owners, or writing Nazi on the side of Tesla cars? I thought they were the party of J6.
I know.
No, they're the party that in the summer of 2020, when we had 574 riots, they said they were mostly peaceful. And dozens of Americans died, thousands of cops were injured, billions in property damage. We had all the evidence in the world, and they only cared about one riot. Forget about the 574 riots. Then they voted for a vice president that year, who then became 4 years later their presidential candidate, who said, oh no, those rioters aren't going to stop. They shouldn't stop, and we're not going to stop supporting them. So they've been radicalized, and they feign this moral outrage. Oh, Trump, Trump, Trump. They're full of Adam Schiff. They're just full of it. They're hypocrites.
If I was to point at what gets them extraordinarily upset, because they aren't seeing that, right? They're not looking at that, and their news isn't feeding them that information. I've had the conversation about the summer of love in Seattle, where all those girls were in the chop zone, and Trump wanted to send in the National Guard. And again, he was a Hitlerian, authoritarian lunatic. I have had those conversations, and they don't see it. What they do see is Rubio is restructuring and reforming the State Department. And I've literally written it all at Sean. And here's what they're doing. They're going after the refugees and the gays, the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. How do you think, I'm quoting this from a friend in my text message, how do you interpret this shift in policies? What message do you think it sends to the international community? Don't you think that reducing emphasis on human rights will embolden authoritarian regimes? Who have you become, Jill? That's a shot. So that is what they're seeing. They're not.
I have a few expletives I might throw back.
Maybe. Yeah.
I love to say to liberals, let me educate you, and start from there. Because, one of the things, I've known Trump for 30 years. It's amazing he's been on the political stage since 2015, And the moment he came down the escalator, and they still have not even tried to figure this man out. They don't know how he thinks. Now, he is the master. Number one, everything with this guy is a negotiation. Everything. He's constantly negotiating. He takes up more space in more people's minds than any other person, single person on the face of this earth. And he does it on purpose. He knows what he's doing. Very intelligent, very smart, very successful guy. And they threw everything they had at him. All these people that are writing you right now are the same people as they didn't care that they raided his home, but Hillary Clinton had more top secret information on her servers, and they gave her a pass. No reasonable prosecutor would prosecute. They didn't care that Joe Biden had top secret classified information at 4 separate locations. His locations didn't get raided.
Their answer is he returned them. Trump wouldn't return them. I've had that argument. And they're, well, why wouldn't Trump return them?
But they're like Alka-Seltzer in the water, Jillian. You know what the problem is? You cannot convince them.
Yeah.
There's nothing you're going to be able to say.
No.
Because they're like Alka-Seltzer in water. Trump, bubble and fizz and let off energy and feel better. I hate Trump. Trump's a Nazi, fascist, racist, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. Okay? How'd that work out in the last election?
Sean, I said that too. I was like, what happened when the Russiagate thing? Listen, Trump is not perfect in my opinion. There are things I would like. I don't think he's perfect. I want my Venezuelan gay makeup artist back. There are things, listen, that I would like.
Bring back the makeup artist.
I would like for him to slow down a bit. Like I'm a bit overwhelmed by the tariff situation. The China thing scares me. Like they're being super aggressive with cutting everything, and it's like you can't follow it. It's a bit intense. I wanted to even ask you, like, what the hell is going on with China? On one hand, it's like we got a hold on it. China's like, no, you don't. We're not negotiating with you. We're not even going to negotiate with you until you put all these tariffs on pause. And it's affecting me. I'm seeing it, but I default to all the things you've just said. I just also see some of the things they talk about like this, and this is where I would say to you, like, why did we have to take on every single trade war at the same time? Couldn't we have gone?
Look, maybe it's because I've known him for so long and know him. And I think the system needs the shock. You know, if you open your pool, well, you live in Florida, so your pool's open year round. You lived in California, so your pool was probably open year round. But when I did live in New York, you'd open your pool and you'd have to shock your pool. He is the very definition of a disruptor and an iconoclast. He shatters illusions. And if you really want transformational, consequential change, you're going to have to break things. And he's fully aware of what he's doing. That I know for sure. Let's look at tariffs, for example.
I was going to say, can you update me on this? Like, who showed up? I'm trying to follow it, Sean. It's like 20 countries are here negotiating. We've got 18 proposals on the table. No one can follow it. And we are all trying. And I've had very intelligent people try to disseminate it.
We don't know how it's going to end yet. He's also a risk taker. I mean, think about this. Probably if he would have said after 2020 he wasn't going to run, I would argue the odds were very high. They probably would have left him alone and moved on.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't have gone after him
with
all that lawfare. But he was at the table in Vegas. He pushed all his chips in the middle of the table. Now, this is what he's trying to do on tariffs. This is just a fact. For the last 50, 60 years, establishment types, institutionalists, if you will, in Washington, they have allowed America. He's not wrong. Our countries, our friends, our foes have ripped us off. They have abused us. They've taken advantage of us. And it's been unfair. And the most frustrating part to me is a lot of these countries are our ally countries. You know, we are providing for the overwhelming amount of security for Europe and for Canada and all these other countries. We pay the bulk of that money. And without America, they're screwed. Okay, explain to me. I'll take the European Union, for example. They put a 10% tariff on any American-made automobile being brought into their country. And before Trump decided to disrupt this, we only put a 2.5% tariff on it. But then it runs deeper. Because I'll give you Germany, for example. They sell $50 million of cars in America annually. We sell about 8.5 million of our cars to them. Because after the 10% tariff, which is 7.5% higher than what we have, then you have a 30% VAT tax, value added tax, national sales tax. Okay, that raises our sticker price over 30% higher than what it would normally be, which makes buying an American car completely unattractive. And yet we've given them free access to our markets. So what Trump is doing is negotiating. All these companies have been in, Mercedes, BMW. They trust me, they all want a deal. They want access to our markets, and so does China. Now, China definitely, they have weapons in their arsenal. We've got weapons in ours. Their economy is going to hell, and they need our markets for access. They have rare earth minerals that we need. Here's how I think it ultimately plays out.
I was going to say, how does it play out?
Countries, one by one, will start making deals with our country. If I was President Trump, I would do it with great fanfare. I don't know what his plan is on that. And I would let America know, like America knows he's secured the border. America knows he's deporting people, and 80% of Americans support him. If Americans could see, all right, India, Australia, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Great Britain, other European countries, it's going to be, to me, every deal is a win after win after win. And he promised that you're going to get sick of winning. I'm never going to get sick of winning. I'm just not.
And
I like winning.
I see that, to be honest with you. And I'm like, well, but look at this. Look what's happening. The only problem is you've got the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is China, and they can sink our battleship. And that's what people see. Because it's like, oh my God. And the China, they're not seeing all these wins that he's getting along the way.
What do you mean they can sink our battleship? We have a lot of bullets in our gun too.
Really?
They got bullets theirs, we got bullets. Oh yeah,
but we
absolutely.
get so much crap from them. I don't even have the
China's entire. First of all, they need energy desperately, right?
They don't
we
get
can
it from
help
us,
them with
do they?
energy.
Really?
There's a deal to be made here.
Okay.
They need. I think they have like a 70-day supply of energy. They don't have a lot of energy. They need energy.
You can't go get it from Russia or Iran or something? Can't they go get it from the bad guys?
And they can't. And, but again, Trump's trying to do a lot of big things simultaneously. He's taken on a lot. I admire him for it. Yeah. But, let's see. One thing I would say is we're not even 100 days. We're taping this. It's not even 100 days yet, which is why I have my Zyn right here. And that's a different story. And he has done a lot. He moves at the speed of light. Some people don't like the style. I happen to like it. I love the fact that he disrupts, that he challenges the old order. I think the system needed an earthquake. Trump's that earthquake.
I get it.
And I'll tell you the reason why, because I want to return this country to constitutional order. I want to return to founding principles. If you read our framers, our founders, they believed in greater freedom and limited government. We've gotten away from that. We're not the land of the free and home of the brave. We're the land of the nanny state where the left, if they had their way, would provide. I don't want them to provide. They've already screwed up our kids' school. Give me half of what you're spending and I'll buy my own teacher. You could create an education cooperative. You get 10 families. Let's say we give them all 15 grand each a year, granted money for schools. Go out, hire your own teacher or teachers, give them a good salary, benefits, retirement, healthcare, and then you'll have, 10 kids with one teacher. Those kids are going to focus on reading, writing, math, science, history, and computers. They're not going to be focused in on, I want to identify as whatever. I'm so sick of it.
I don't disagree with you. And, when a lot of people were up in arms about that, there were concerns about some of the grants to underprivileged kids. And it was like, I was one of those kids. They find one issue, like with Doge. Well, now we're not feeding children in Ethiopia. Like, that's not hold on, that's not true. This is more complicated. But they find one issue and they go to town on it and they flood the zone. And 9 times out of 10, it's not accurate. Like Kilmar, Abrego Garcia, or, oh my God, now we're starving children all over the world. But they do this all of the time with one issue, and they somehow negate 99.9% of the rest, because he did keep those loans for the underprivileged kids. He folded it into
like
something.
You're worried, like it's getting louder in your head, or louder from maybe.
I want
people,
Sean.
It sounds like people are getting loud in your life. Hey, because Jillian, what he's doing is controversial. What he's doing is disruptive. Now, let me go back to a show where you were a total star and you helped to save people's lives, and you went so hard deep in the paint that if it meant I'm going to shock you and wake you the hell up and you're going to lose this weight or you're going to die,
Yeah.
you would go to whatever length it would take. There was no holding back.
And I did.
How are you any different than Trump? I watched that show and you scared the living shit out of me. I mean, you were great on that show, but you know what came across more than anything? The woman that sent me, what was it? Corn-fed?
Grass-fed meat. You're eating this. Go to get these fast food burgers.
I had to get used to the smell. I didn't like the smell part, but I got used to it. And you did it because you cared. You would yell at people because they needed to be hit between the eyes. You need to hit hard. Throw them an elbow. Wake them up. Because if they don't wake up and you're 400 pounds, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
You didn't want them to die, and you cared enough to yell at them sometimes. And then at other times inspire them. And at other times push them further than they thought they can go. Donald Trump's doing the same thing. Donald Trump is you. You are like twins.
I know. See, people just go, he's unhinged. I'm like, well, he's not unhinged. He's bringing manufacturing back. All the things you just said, all the things you've told me, all the things I understand now. It's just like, did you have to? Although I appreciate what you're saying, this is his style, and we're along for the ride. Now we're in a game of chicken, though, with China, and this is like, you got 2 guys with an ego that is not containable. What do you actually think happens?
Public, so I can say what I've known has been going.
Okay,
they're already talking.
They just said they weren't talking.
Both of them know this is mutually assured destruction. China needs access to our markets. We need their rare earths. They don't want this. Even everybody's acting tough, and it's let's see how it settles. I can't guarantee it.
Okay.
If I had to predict today, I would say there's a deal there.
Got it.
And the deal could be simple or it could be extensive. It could be, look, if you look at China started this tariff war. Donald Trump's just the only one that had the guts to confront him on it. I have a list and I've scrolled it on my TV show. Pretty much anything that we sell in China is tariffed to death.
Right.
And it's been unfair. They're ripping us off, and then they get free access to our markets. And, American companies have been fine with it because they want cheap labor. They don't want to pay Americans, a fair rate. And I think it's a part of our economy. I don't want our pharmaceuticals coming from China. I don't want rare earths coming from them. I hope we learn our lesson and now become rare earth independent of China, and manufacturing of important essentials like pharmaceuticals, which we learned during COVID, we had a shortage of. I don't want that to continue.
Of course.
So, this is going to play out. It's unsettling. Wall Street is notoriously skittish. But then if there's a day where Scott Bessent will say, oh, just had a conversation with this country, bingo, the market goes up.
Right.
Or Donald Trump, like, for example, I was glad to hear him say this last week, that he was not going to fire Powell.
I was going to ask you that. Why does that matter? I don't understand that. That was such a big
horrible
deal.
I don't think he's
thought he didn't. I thought this guy, like, how come that was so great? I don't get it.
Well, because Trump is unhappy with high interest rates and thinks I agree with them. I think they can come down. I think we could easily come down a half a basis point to start. home sales have slowed, refinancing is slowed. That it puts a little into the economy and muddies up the waters. And I'd like to see the economy flowing. I think it will play out. Look, one other thing we got to remember on the economy is we're still living under the Biden-Harris economy.
Yep.
Donald Trump now is working through, he got the continuing resolution. That's funding Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's government. His first budget will be when the fiscal year ends September 30 and the new budget year begins October 1st. So that'll be his first fiscal year. Now, in the interim, thank goodness we have this little procedural loophole when it comes to spending in Washington. Now I'm getting so ridiculously deep in the weeds. Most people don't want to hear this. Their eyes are going to glaze over. But it's called reconciliation. And rather than having to reach cloture and 60 votes as the threshold to get a bill to be voted on, when it deals with financial issues in the Senate, these are arcane rules, you can have a simple majority of 51. That means if it as long as it meets the definition of financial reconciliation, that means the Trump tax cuts can be made permanent. That means that no tax on tips, Social Security, Medicare, that can happen. That could also include energy, what Trump's goal is, which is energy dominance. Energy policy can shift. Probably monies can be used for the border as well as part of that deal. That's the hope. But we got thin margins in terms of majorities in the House and Senate. So it's not everyone's going to be happy, but they all better understand it's better than what we got. And hopefully they'll get that done.
Why are people happy, though, that he didn't fire Jerome Powell? That's the part I don't get. Even you're like,
I wish he could. It would be a legal battle that would go on.
Oh, I see.
Forever.
And it will get more chaos and instability, basically, is what you're saying.
Powell already said if he tried to fire him, he wouldn't leave.
Right. Okay.
And then, so now you're setting it up for legal. You have to fire him as the Fed chair for cause, is my understanding. So
got it.
They have to find a cause.
So
I don't think he did the best job during the Biden years. Look, inflation. We're going to get first quarter GDP numbers. The left will panic and they're like, this is Donald Trump's fault. Meanwhile, it's not even his economy yet. Now, he's made moves that have resulted in lower gas prices, lower egg prices, grocery prices. We are creating more jobs than people thought. Here's the thing about tariffs that I didn't mention that I think is important. When he started threatening tariffs, we had over 8 trillion with a T dollars committed to investments in America. NVIDIA, Apple, $500 billion, Nissan, Honda, Hyundai, all going to build plants in Mexico. Oh, Trump's president, we'll build it in America. That'll create high-paying career jobs for Americans. I like that. I am a blue-collar guy.
Yeah.
I worked in construction 10 years. I worked in a restaurant 10 years. I was 12 years old, washing dishes, by hand in a busy restaurant. I was a cook at 13.
Yeah.
It was great. I'd stay working 2, 3 in the morning, have 2 St. Pauli girls at the bar at 12 and 13, fly home literally on my bicycle. It was a great time in my life. I loved it.
You are exactly what you espouse. You came from poverty. You've been working since you were a child, and you're a self-made man. I mean, it's incredible. So you can understand why all of the entitlement programs that the Democrats are wanting to put forward they don't work. I find that they don't work. They infantilize people. They make them victims. They never have the ability to take agency because you never empower them to do so. You understand this. I understand this. But as a kid now, and you're seeing the outrage over, I thought this was ironic to ask you about the student loan collection resuming that. Gen Z and millennial are outraged. And what I'm trying to understand is, as an Xer, I dropped out of college, but all of my friends went to college, and just for
I went and paid my own way, but I didn't have enough money to finish.
They're literally still, some of them are still paying off those loans. And then what about the people?
I paid off a loan.
Exactly.
10 years.
Why do you think that this generation would feel, I thought it was bold too, because Trump is compromising all of those voters. They're going to want that. I don't think they feel as though it's infantilizing them and it's disempowering them. They want the friggin' college loan forgiven. Why do you think he made that move? I mean, I love it, especially for the poor guy that's a friggin' plumber. Why should he have to pay for your college loan? It's ridiculous.
Well, why should a carpenter, plumber, electrician, nurse, whatever you do, why should you be paying for some Ivy League institution that has, in Harvard's case, backtrack, fiscal year 24, Harvard got 686 million taxpayer dollars. They have an endowment, $53 billion. They don't need a carpenter, electrician, a nurse's tax money when you have an endowment that large. It is a complete BS. Now, if we're going to help people with education, not the kids. When I signed, I paid every penny for college in my life. And because I had worked all those years from when I was 8, when I started as a paper boy, you allowed to say boy, is that gender neutral enough?
I think you're fine.
Bartender. Do I have to be a mixologist now? Whatever.
You're good company.
So, but I say my father used to come in. When I was tending bar, like at 17 years of age, I come home with a wad of cash like this. I made a fortune. And my father would sneak in the middle of the night and take my money. It drove me nuts. He wasn't stealing it. He was putting it in a bank account, so putting it away from me. And he'd leave me like a little stack. I'm like, Dad, stop. I wanted my money. But I will tell you, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, that I worked, that I was independent, that, my parents, they were too busy really to be hands-on in terms of raising me. You can explain to me, you can analyze this. How did I then become a helicopter parent? Because I'm awful. I'm terrible.
You're giving Ainsley's kid a freaking present every time she comes to the house. What happened to you? Where's tough love Hannity?
That part's easy.
Where's the
my
grit?
older kids, I was a helicopter parent, but they were both, high-performing athletes,
right.
And they dedicated a lot of time to their sport, and both of them did really well. I'm very proud of both of them, and they're doing well now, thank God. I forgot what I was saying. But I got it. So they have this endowment. Why are we paying all that money? Use your own money, and maybe if we're gonna spend money on post-high school education, maybe it should be for a community college. Maybe it should be for trade schools. There was a great article that came out, I don't know, maybe about a month ago, and it talked about the new generation of millionaires. Guess who it's going to be?
Plumbers.
It's going to be tradesmen.
Yeah.
I mean, here, think about this. Everybody says, AI is the future. I'm like, it's not the future. It's now. If you ever want to think, just go to AI. I have now been working with Grok at a very high level, and I am telling you, it is scary how good it is. I talked to somebody that's really an expert in this, and I actually sat down with him. We started doing some just experimental stuff, and he was the one that gave me the line. I stole it from him, which is, anytime you're going to think, you can use AI.
Yeah.
And then I have asked it to write monologues, which I've never used. I always write it my own words, for my show, that I can argue are at times as good as what I could possibly ever write. He told me that he could create, with my own voice and given enough opinions, he could create something that would live in perpetuity, that my kids' entire lives, whatever issue they would ever face, they'd be able to go to their AI and ask Dad what he would think about a situation, and it would be exactly what I would tell them. Think about that. If you go to, how can Jillian Michaels become a multi, billionaire? It will give you an answer that, by the way, is extremely intelligent. It's crazy.
That is wild. I'm going to ask that actually as soon as we're done. I'm like, what is,
How
although
to
you've
defeat
been helping
liberals
me with that.
forever.
You were very disappointed that I did not yet own my own plane, and you've been helping me work on that, and I am exceptionally grateful. I know I've kept
By the way,
you.
you happen to be a great businesswoman. You're very smart, and you know what? I just get grok, just get it, and then just start playing with it, and ask it questions, and then ask it questions about what you're interested in. Ask it business questions. Ask it fitness questions. You know, one thing that, who was it? Gary Brecker said. Oh, I know. By the way, he's a big fan of yours because I interviewed him after I'd interviewed you on my podcast. We haven't aired it yet, and he said if you survive the next 5 years, the odds go up exponentially that you might live to over 100. Now, first of all, I don't know if I want to live to over 100 unless I can live really healthy. I do work out hard. I'm way more dedicated, in part thanks to your help, your insistence, your persistence, your
No, you were
adamance,
disciplined. You just vape. You
your
got to
deep
stop
friendship.
vaping.
But you can think about that because AI will probably figure out the next generation of medical science that will detect disease that much earlier with probably information for cures. It makes sense, right?
It
Now,
does.
do I know for sure? It
Without
really
question.
does. It's kind of interesting.
You think about if you could just
The
kick
tradesmen
the
are going to
can.
get rich as hell because you can't replace them.
Oh, let me tell you, in remodeling a house in Wyoming, I have decided I am actually going to get into plumbing or wallpapering. That.
I used to hang wallpaper for a living.
Oh my gosh, Sean, you could retire. I'm like, wait, how much is it? Tell me into my good ear.
In construction, I first started as a house painter. Then a friend of mine, I got a big job, and part of the job was to hang really expensive wallpaper, and I had no clue how to do it. I said, no problem. Yeah, we do this all the time. Lied through my teeth. I'm admitting it in retrospect. But a friend of mine had gone to the Vermont School of Wallpaper Hanging. I called him. He came, and I learned how to hang wallpaper. To your home where in Wyoming?
Wyoming.
And I will hang your wallpaper and paint your house. I don't know when I'll get the time, but I would if I could.
I need you in other places. As tempting as that
you need other
sounds,
places.
I know I need you dealing with these issues because as tempting as that sounds, trust me, I still have like shock from the bill. Like I can't even tell you. I need you disseminating this information for us. I think much of America would agree with me.
Half of America wants me to shut up, Jillian. Trust me.
I don't agree, Sean.
That's why I left New York. I walk in a restaurant and it's like daggers. You know, you could see that my presence would trigger and you'd see disgust on the face of a lot of people. And I felt at some point it was getting too hostile, and that whoever might be with me, I felt, you know what, I can't put them in jeopardy. Now I do situational self-defense every day. I don't ever want to ever have to lift a finger and hurt anybody. I don't want to do it. So I don't want to be in that environment. I don't want to put people that I love or care about in that environment.
You know,
I don't have that problem in Florida.
You bring that up, that you feel this hostility and this aggression. This is definitely something, and I hate to make it a right or left issue, but it very clearly is at this moment in time. You know, Bill Maher sits with Gavin Newsom. You sit with Gavin Newsom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, well, okay, they're talking. What'd you think of Gavin? Oh, I can't stand the guy. Whatever. We even had the same conversation.
I didn't dislike him. He's very personable, but he's slick.
Sean.
And he doesn't tell the truth.
Right. But you sat with him, and no one on the right was like, if Hannity, you sat with Hitler. The op-ed.
I didn't get that. I didn't get criticized for that interview.
Okay.
I really didn't.
But Bill Maher goes and sits with Donald Trump, and Larry David just wrote an op-ed in the New York Times mocking him.
I read it.
Sean, what is that?
I'll give you my take on
I hate it. What is it with Tom Hanks on SNL in a MAGA hat pretending to be a Klans member saying everybody who's in a MAGA hat is a racist? Like, what is this? What is it? And I only see that coming out of the left. I really do. I don't see anybody doing it on the right.
The party that allows people in the halls of Congress and to be pro-Hamas, a designated terror organization that has in its charter the destruction of Israel, or the psychos that are the super fans of Luigi Mangione, or the radical left that sits silent as we have act after act after act of domestic terrorism against Elon Musk and Tesla. And somebody's going to die if this keeps going on. And, I hope not. But, here's what my take on the Mars situation. When Joe Scarborough and Mika, all right, after Trump wins, they call him.
I know.
They want to meet. They're such phony hypocrites. They spent, years trashing him, threat to democracy, every name in the book. And now he's going to be president again. Oh, I got to suck up to him. That was a suck up. Bill Maher's wasn't. No. Bill Maher, Kid Rock, and I talked to Kid Rock, interviewed Kid Rock about it. Kid Rock made the offer to Bill and said, I think you should meet him. You're critical of him. He's cool. He can handle it. Come meet him. And Bill Maher, so he worked it out. Bill Maher accepted the invitation. I give him credit.
I do too.
Invitation of, Biden's wasn't there, but I would have been talking to a corpse, just to be honest.
Yeah, no good.
But the thing. The amazing thing is they lied about that for 4 years. I'm like, I was saying it in 2020 and people were assaulting me verbally because I stated the obvious.
Yeah.
Up until the end, these people knew that this guy was a mess, but they still were willing to stick by him. Anyway, back to Mark. I watched his show after the meeting, and I felt what I liked about it. And he does have this quality that I like. I don't think he's a fan of mine.
That is not true.
And however, what's interesting about him is he's calling out his own party. He's right in his criticism. He's wrong in some of his criticism of conservatives and of Trump. But he was honest about that night because it's exactly what Trump told me about that night. And it's exactly what Kid Rock told me about night. So I appreciated his honesty. And he's not wrong. This is a guy that donated a lot of money to Democrats. Why didn't they ever invite him to the White House? Why,
not only that, she didn't show up for an interview with him. I remember him saying hello, I'm on your team. She didn't show up for an interview with him. She didn't show up for an interview with Rogan. They don't show up. And not only do they not show up, they then do this kind of evil. I'm sorry. I thought what Larry David did was gross simply because you're mocking him for trying to bridge this gap. And what you're doing is you're saying, hey, if any of you other people try to bridge this gap, try to have this conversation, try to find common ground, we're going to humiliate you. We're going to put a scarlet letter on your back. We're going to strip you naked and march you through the town like Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. And that's what that was. And that is just another reason that I can no longer identify with the left. I don't get it, Sean. And you see so much more tolerance. I'm sorry, you do. If Matt Walsh is against gay marriage and he'll sit here and show up and talk with me about it, and we'll find common ground on other issues. We don't agree. I hope he doesn't get to change laws involving my marriage. And if he does, I will fight him in the appropriate arenas. But the fact that he'll sit down with me, I'll sit down.
Most conservatives are not. Most conservatives I know are like me, libertarian.
I know.
You're
my 90s liberal.
That's a separate issue. What's that?
It's not a separate issue, though, because, first of all, I joke that you're my 90s liberal, which I know you don't like, but to a certain extent, Sean. But it is important because I think that most people look at the far right the alt-right, if you will, and they wipe the whole party with that. And it's just not the case. It's simply not. And you're a perfect example that it's not.
Look, those people, I respect people of all different views. Back to Marr just for one second. I have one more thought on him. I actually admire him more for doing it. And what I loved at the end of his commentary, at some point during his commentary, he said, I told him that there are people that are not going to like what we're doing here. And then he said, but I don't give a shit. And you know what? I like that. Even before the election, he said something that very few people on the left would say. He said, oh, if Trump wins, I'm going to come here. I'm going to make jokes about him. I'm going to do my show and go about my life.
Yeah.
You know what? Because that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Come Biden won. I didn't love it. I tried to point out his failures wherever I could. When Obama won, I didn't love him as president particularly either. I think they're both weak and I think their policies are ineffective. But, I wasn't moving to Ireland like Rosie, and I never made any proclamations. I didn't lose it.
At least you did what she said.
You ever watch the Ladies of the View, that hard-hitting news show? They're like every day, oh my God, the world is falling. It's crazy. It's actually funny.
If you were to give one message to the left, if we could get one freaking person on the left to just listen.
Keep going. Don't stop. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change. Sorry, I mean, I think their positions are so awful for the country. I don't think they have the ability for introspection, reflection, and course changing right now. Now, for my conservative friends that think, oh, no, we've got them in a box, it's going to be this way forever, you're out of your mind. Political winds change. I've lived through many of them in the course of my life. And don't think just because you won this time, you're going to win every time, because you're not. Things will shift and change. A lot of the future of the Republican Party remains in their hands. They got the bat, they got the ball. It's their backsides on the line, their ass on the line. And now they've got to deliver, and they've got to figure out a way. The Democratic Party has had a history of this. You can go back to 72 against Nixon, and we go back to Humphreys, or go back to McGovern, and go back to radical left and the beginning of redistributionism, statism, socialism, whatever you want to call it, whatever ism it is. And so they flirted with this now for a long time. And then when they lose badly, then they become a little more clever and a little more obscure, and they're not as honest about what they really believe in. And they try to tighten up the middle. Person that did it the best by far in our lifetime was Bill Clinton. Yes. Bill Clinton pushed Hillary care, failed miserably, got in the midterms, and then came back with the era of big government is over, the end of welfare as we know it. Both he and Al Gore, interestingly, and I've played this tape many times, were talking about eliminating waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption, and they went pretty hard at it. And lo and behold, Clinton worked with a dear friend of mine. I was the MC the night he became Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. He's like my older brother. I love him. And I was the MC that night. I was a local radio host in Atlanta. It was 94. 2 years later, I began at Fox. And it was a great experience for me. But Clinton and Gingrich were the last people to balance the budget, and they did it 5 times. We've never balanced it since. And they did it. It was in both of their best interests to do it. Clinton was smart enough to adapt, to change course, to reflect, and then he won, a pretty easy re-election in 96. He did really well.
Will we ever see that kind of collaboration again, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. History, ebb and flow.
Okay.
I think if Donald Trump is successful in being able to disrupt the system but also repair it at the same time. And this is a little bit of a process. You can't, if you picked up tennis tomorrow, you're not going to be good at tennis. So it's a process to become a good tennis player, a good athlete in any sport, right? So there is a process of breaking down institutions that are used to doing things one way and then shifting the mindset. People must adapt to thinking anew about government. That's a big thing he's trying to accomplish. And I think he's going to be able to do it. I think the country will be better off for it. I think we'll save money. I think people's mindsets that they think that the government's going to provide for them successfully when they fail at pretty much everything they do now will slowly erode away. And I think people, hopefully, at the end of the process, will realize freedom is the better choice and that this is the greatest country God gave man. And it's the responsibilities on your shoulders. I was talking earlier about my life. The best thing that ever happened to me is that I worked, I lived my own life. My parents let me be me and left me alone. They really did. And they had no reason really to, except that they were working so hard they didn't notice. And that was the greatest blessing of my life, because I've always been able to fend for myself. It was cool. I mean, I was like 12, 13 years old. We didn't have dinner at 6 o'clock on the table. That was not my reality. I mean, and I'm kind of glad, because I got to go get 4 pieces of pizza. Then I come home and my sisters were like vultures hovering around me trying to steal it. And I'd have to grab my food and run into my room and close the door and barricade it. Or, I would get these huge, not even like a roll, these huge heroes, roast beef, lettuce, tomato, mayo, salt, and pepper, or eggs and potatoes and bacon and sausage on I'm talking about Italian bread size roll. At that point in my life, I was able to eat anything I wanted. I miss those days. Just saying, I'm venting a little bit.
You're allowed. Sean, I can't thank you enough. You're absolutely fantastic. And I am so grateful.
You're the best.
For everything you do. And I know this is the most ridiculous question to ask you, but I hear you have a little show on Fox. Where do we get more from Sean Hannity? It's stupid.
You know what? If I didn't love what I do, I wouldn't be able to do it for as long as I have. I'm very grateful. I call it an undeserved life. If I was going to write 2 more books, these would be it. An undeserved life. The second would be everything I really wanted to tell you, but knew would get me fired immediately. Like, that's the crazy thoughts that go through my head.
I want both of them. When are we getting?
It's just a good title.
I want both of those books. I'm going to push you to run for office and write both of those books.
What office do you, dog catcher?
Yeah, no,
I'll be the rat czar.
You know where I stand on this. I want you to run for office. Come on, Sean. Just think about it. Just keep it in your mind.
If I can continue to do what I do, which I love to do every day, 3 hours of radio, hour of TV, I have my podcast, be on shows like with people like great people like you, I'm happy.
Thank you for everything.
I'm a blessed man.
I adore you, and please give Ainsley and the family my love. And go make yourself a grass-fed steak.
Everyone likes her more than me. I have a complex about that.
Well, just, she's likable.
She deserves it. I got it. She's more likable. I got it. You're saying it with your body language. She's more likable. No. It's
equal. For sure.
Equal.
Yeah.
Your voice went up. That means you're not telling the truth. Anyway, listen, you're one of the most generous people I've ever met. You've been really kind to me, and you definitely have helped me become healthier, and I'm still working on it. I'm going to get better and better. You've been a great inspiration, and also you've been an inspiration to others, and I appreciate that so much about you. And because health, wellness, fitness, you don't have your health. There's a reason that I lift weights. There's a reason that I do push-ups and sit-ups every day. There's a reason I punch the bag every day. There's a reason that I do, fighting and situational self-defense. Is to stay in shape. I'd like to, all the years that God gives me on this earth, to be healthy. You help people do that. And a lot of your work has been life-saving for people, and that transformational. So I hope you're really proud of that. That's pretty cool.
I am when you say it like that, and I get to hear it from Sean Hannity. Then I am.
That makes it so much smaller. All right. Anyway, you're the best. Jillian, great to see you. Keeping it real. We kept it real today.
We sure did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.